What's going on, everybody? This your boy G coming back to you from the 432, and in this video I'd really like to rewind back and review the latest installment of the Halloween franchise called Halloween Ends, just to share a couple of thoughts and opinions over what I saw during the final chapter to the Laurie Strode and Michael Myers story that began back in 1978. A lot of people did not like the last film, and I can see why. It barely had any screen time for Michael Myers. The movie was mainly focused on our newest character named Corey Cunningham. And personally, Corey was the main reason I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm going to explain why here in just a second. Because really quick, before I even begin this review video, if you haven't seen Halloween Ends, go ahead and stop or keep watching because there will be spoilers in this information. Folks, I'm a huge fan of Halloween 1978. It's one of the main horror films that I love to go back and watch every single year on the month of October. I'm not too fond of the original sequels, but they're still fun to watch. You just have to get past the crappy mask that makes Michael look more like a trick-or-treater rather than a serial killer. Other than that, my point here is I feel like you have to be a long-term die-hard fan that watches all of the Halloween films, including Halloween 3, The Seasons of the Witch, to really understand where and how the elements of Halloween Ends came to fruition. Because honestly, from the very beginning of this film, I felt like I was watching a completely different movie. Which was kind of funny because that's actually what they intended to do in 1982 with Halloween Seasons of the Witch. Director Tommy Lee Wallace and John Carpenter wanted to shift away from Michael Myers and begin an entirely different scenario/saga for the Halloween franchise, since they basically killed Michael and Dr. Loomis in Halloween 2. And not to mention that the font that they used in Halloween Ends is similar to the font of Halloween 3 Seasons of the Witch. So already I was feeling a sense of fresh air, like something new and unexpected was about to unfold. The question was, how and when? Well, that question was quickly answered after seeing Jeremy, the kid that Corey is seen babysitting at the beginning of the film, accidentally gets pushed off the 3rd floor of the house.
What was that?
My jaw freaking dropped. I looked over at my wife and she had the exact same reaction. It was very bone-chilling, especially how the title and John Carpenter's Halloween theme came on right after. I don't know about you guys, but I was getting Halloween 1978 vibes. The entire sequence felt fresh but familiar, especially with the small Easter eggs from the other films. For example, Corey and Jeremy watching The Thing like Laurie and Tommy Doyle did back in 1978. Very nostalgic, folks. Speaking of Laurie, I really love how after the opening credits we find out that 4 years have passed since the events of Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. We see Laurie typing up her story and sharing to the audience that Michael changed not only her life, but the town of Haddonfield itself. Now this honestly gave me a pretty good idea of how this movie was going to play out. After seeing Corey working at a mechanic shop wearing a mechanic suit, I immediately got the impression that Corey was somehow going to fill in Michael's shoes and become the new Michael Myers. The question again was just how and when it was going to happen. Corey didn't seem like a threat at first. He was absolutely traumatized by the accident he had with Jeremy and didn't seem like much of a fighter either after getting dealt with by some asshole kids. And by the way, did anyone notice the convertible car and the phrase "don't scratch the car"? They were referencing moments from Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. But luckily, this is what causes Laurie to step in and save Corey, officially meeting each other for the very first time. Laurie takes him to get some help from the doctor where her granddaughter Allison is working at as a nurse. Now folks, this is where things started to get a little interesting because we can obviously see that Allison and Corey are attracted to one another, especially later on in the film. But shortly after these events, he actually gets mugged and thrown over a bridge where ironically we see the unconscious 21-year-old slowly being dragged into a sewage drain, who was revealed to be none other than the legend himself, Michael Myers. Only what was really shocking to me was that Michael actually sees what happened to Corey and what exactly this kid is going through, so he lets him go. Something I don't think we have ever seen Michael do. He might have done it in Halloween 5 when he had Jamie right in front of his face, but who knows? This was pretty shocking to me. I can see why a lot of people despise this movie. Michael was only 25% of his old self, but who could blame him? He got his ass whooped and got his fingers blown off in Halloween Kills. Give my man a break. But we then see Corey go to Laurie and Allison's house, where Laurie actually sees him standing outside like how Michael used to do. But what was really bone-chilling for me around this scene was the way Laurie was looking at Corey. She can immediately tell that this guy did something wrong. She even goes on to say later on in the film that when she looks into Corey's eyes, she sees the exact same thing she sees in Michael's eyes. Which I thought was pretty cool because I was already under the impression that we were going to see Corey transform into the new Michael. A similar situation that Danny Strode was in Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Very nostalgic once again. Only the question remained how and when it was going to happen, because Corey seemed out of it at this point, ready to jump at anything and anyone. Which I actually enjoyed seeing, to be honest, especially when he stood up for Allison against her ex-boyfriend, Sheriff Doug Mulaney, who was actually wearing a similar jacket that Sheriff Brackett wore in Halloween 1978. But from then on, things started to pick up because after Corey drops off Allison, we see that Corey was being followed by Doug Mulaney, who ends up getting lured into the sewage pipe where Corey actually has Michael kill him while he held him up. Corey completely flipped the switch and became some crazy lunatic out of nowhere, experiencing the joy that Michael was getting off of killing someone in cold blood. We see this when Corey and Michael teamed up to kill Dr. Mathis, Allison's boss, and even Allison's friend. This scene was really disturbing and cool at the same time because Michael actually ends up killing Allison's friend in the same fashion he killed Bob in Halloween 1978. So many references, so many cameos, and so much was happening in one 2-hour Halloween film. I personally felt that they could have stretched this movie out just a little bit longer, but no. Things began wrapping up after Laurie and Mr. Allen, Jeremy's dad, had a very frightening conversation that absolutely had chills running through my body, everybody. Mr. Allen goes on to tell Laurie that when he saw Corey the other day, he stopped to say hello, but mentioned that when he saw Corey's face, he couldn't help but realize that Corey was not the same Corey that babysitted his son Jeremy prior to the accident, which was pretty interesting because I myself was shooken up when I saw his face. I couldn't help but think that this is probably how Michael Myers' facial expression is behind his mask. Pure evil. But once Laurie confirms that Corey is bad and must protect Allison from him, she goes out of her way to confront Corey on his own playing field and tells him to stay away from Allison or else. Where obviously Corey doesn't agree with Laurie and plans to leave Haddonfield with Allison, but before he does so, he makes a quick pit stop to Michael Myers and literally fights him for his mask. It was so unexpected, but this is actually where the final resolution begins because after Corey leaves Michael on the floor maskless, Corey begins to provoke and kill everybody who hurt him and Allison throughout this film. For example, the kids in the convertible car, which was actually my favorite kill scene of the entire movie. Each kill was so horrific and downright brutal, especially the way he ran over that little girl. Now, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but I think they were referencing Halloween 5's car chase when Jamie and Billy were being chased by Michael across some field. Corey definitely gave justice to the mask. His movements and style of killing was just on point, especially with that haunting theme playing in the background. Now, Corey's last victim out of all people before leaving Haddonfield was Laurie Strode herself. Only she was already anticipating him to show up and take her out. She calls in a suicide call before faking her own death that causes Corey to get popped twice by the legend. But crazy enough, as Corey lies helplessly on the floor, Laurie shows him mercy by telling him to kill her. But as this was happening, Allison pulled up to the house where Laurie began to tell Corey that when she finds out what he did, she will never go anywhere with him. Or once again, Corey does not agree with Laurie and stabs himself after telling her, if I can't have her, then no one can. Well, we kind of had to fill in the last part. Folks, I was so upset when I saw him take his own life. Not just because he made it look like Laurie killed him before Allison could even walk in, but the overall idea of Corey possibly taking over the Michael Myers mantle just went down the drain for me. They let it slide, folks, but it is what it is. I guess they had to do it in order to seal the deal with Michael and Laurie, because the events that followed after Corey's death will forever be in the books, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Myers versus Laurie Strode. This fight finale was well worth the wait. It was obviously a different fight from their first encounter because Laurie was very much ready this time around. And even Michael learned a few tricks by avoiding that knitting tool that pierced his neck in 1978. Very cool. Very nostalgic, everybody. But Laurie ends up winning the fight with the help of her granddaughter Allison, where we see Laurie cut Michael up in very critical spots that had him slowly bleeding out. I mean, they had that man like William Wallace. They even went as far as tying him up to the top of an SUV and slowly haul this man to the junkyard, along with all of Haddonfield joining in to witness the official death of Michael Myers and the disposal of his body. Victory goes to Laurie Strode. Folks, this was an amazing, fresh Halloween film that I'm definitely going to be looking forward to watch every single year for the rest of my life. Is there potential for sequels or spin-offs? Most definitely. Will they be just as good as a Michael Myers version? Maybe, maybe not. If this is truly the official ending to the Halloween story that began in 1978, then I'm all for it. Because whether we like it or not, all good and even bad things must come to an end. Folks, I really appreciate you all for tuning into the Lopez Rewind and watching this video. It really means a lot. Just make sure to turn on every single notification and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss out on some pretty cool and nostalgic content. But until then, peace, love, and hair grease, my friends. This your boy G. I'm out.